right, we are live for the first time in forever. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. So I thought, I don't know, just came across me. I thought, let's do an AMA. Let's do Ask Me Anything about quitting drinking, staying sober, whatever you want. You can ask the question. I'll stay as long as people want me to, because I gave absolutely no notice. I'm guessing a lot of people don't even know I'm doing this. But if you're watching now, wherever you're watching, say hello and I'll give you a mention. And you can literally ask me anything, whether it's about quitting drinking or anxiety or personal development, whatever is on your mind, you can bring it up today. So it's Tuesday, 15th of August, and in Cyprus, where I live, it's probably one of the biggest bank holidays of the year. You will not find any shop open. You will not find a doctor anywhere. You will find nothing available today because the whole country, and I really do mean the whole country, has gone to the beach. It's the tradition. 15th of August. I don't really know why. Tuesday, 15th of August, everyone's gone to the beach. So I'm thinking all the shops are shut. The beaches are massively overcrowded. I might as well sit in my office and do an AMA about quitting drinking. So let's say hello to, hi, Craig from Perth, Western Australia. Perth Watch Girl, thank you very much. You saved me. Tell me more. Tell me your story, Perth Watch Girl. How did it start? How did you know it was time to take action is a big question. So if you're watching now and you're questioning your drinking and you're wondering if it's time to take action, then you can fire a question at me around that. Or maybe you've been doing my course, you've been sober for a long time, then post up how long you're sober for. We'll give you a bit of a round of applause and a pat on the back because as the saying goes, quitting drinking is easy. Why, I've done it thousands of times. Staying quit is the real challenge, isn't it? AJS, hi Craig, I'm still drinking. What have you tried, AJ? Are you still using willpower? Are you just still telling yourself that story that tomorrow I'm going to deal with this? What approaches have you taken? Have you read my book and have you done the course is the other questions I want to ask. Dean is here as well, watching on YouTube at the moment. Hi, Craig. Dean and Summer in Newcastle, Australia. 18 months sober, thanks to alcohol lied to me. Fantastic. What was it, Dean, that really kind of rammed the message home? Australia, I've been there a couple of times now. It's kind of there's a strange attitude about alcohol. Every Australian I meet tells me that there is a huge drinking problem in Australia, but it is one of the hardest countries in the world to buy alcohol. In the UK, you can buy alcohol in the petrol stations, in the gas stations. You can pull up, put some fuel in your car and buy a bottle of vodka. It's weird. It's everywhere. But then you go to Australia and you go to the supermarket and you're like, there's no alcohol in here. How amazing. You have to go to a specific liquor store to buy your booze in Australia. And you think with that sort of, top-down mentality about alcohol, the country would really have its head screwed on when it comes to alcohol. But the natives, the locals, they say Australia has just such the worst problem. So I'd love some insider views on that as well. How is the drinking culture of Australia these days? Is it still bad? Is it getting better? What do you think? Let me see. What else we got here? The Bulgarian. Craig, I can only get with beautiful women under the influence at the club with my friends. I'm 27 and single, making me so depressed. Well, look, I hear that story a lot. People say, I need alcohol to socialize because I'm a bit socially awkward. I'm a bit shy and I need alcohol to loosen up, which is like everything with alcohol. Alcohol promises you a solution to a problem and then absolutely roundly, completely fails to deliver on the promise. So alcohol says to you, drink me, I'll give you courage. You'll be able to talk to all the ladies. So you do that. You get a bit drunk and you go and talk to the ladies, but you're still single. So while you're telling me that alcohol helps you, it hasn't really helped you, has you? Because, one of the least attractive things for a woman is to see a drunken man come up and slur and stumble and drool all over them. There's nothing attractive about a drunk man. There's no confidence there. It hints that you've got problems. It hints that you don't have the courage. There's nothing unique about you. You're not in control of your life. You don't respect yourself. You don't treat your body with respect. Going up to women when you've had a drink, all right, maybe you'll get the odd one night stand if you find someone who's equally as drunk as you, but you're not conveying a perception of quality. You're not conveying a perception of confidence. So it's just like everything else with alcohol. The promise of a solution by the evil clown is never matched. It's never lived up to. You always get something worse than what you started with. You got financial problems. Alcohol will tell you, yeah, you don't need to worry about that tonight. You've a hard day at work. Just have a drink and chill out. Relax, man. You get up in the morning. Are your financial problems solved? No, they're worse. They're worse now. Same with everything. So look, what I would say to you, La Bulgarian, is you got to work on yourself as a person. You got to work on yourself as a man. If you are not confident enough to approach a woman that you are attracted to sober, then that just tells you that's the area of your life you need to do some work on. And you need to invest in that area of your life. Grow your confidence. Don't try and cover it up with attractively packaged poison. All right. Perth Watch Girl. Your story, nearly 50 years old, started thinking about quitting around 8 years ago. Not sure why. I took a year off in 2019, but it was very difficult because I didn't really believe that alcohol offered nothing. Okay, yeah. So it's a similar story. Everyone develops a problem with alcohol slowly. It's like water torture. Nobody just starts drinking and then 2 weeks later they're addicted. It's not heroin, The addiction process with alcohol takes years and often decades. And then because it's so slowly ground its way into your life, it's harder to make that decision to stop. A lot of people, myself included, spend a lot of time thinking about it, knowing that it's causing harm, knowing that it's causing damage, but not quite being brave enough to pull the trigger and actually deal with it. Because it's been so ingrained in your life for so long, you start thinking, how can I have my birthday? How can I have Christmas? How can I go on vacation? How can I do this? How can I do that without alcohol being there? And so eventually you have to let the problems build to such a point where you say, I'm sick of this. I'm enough. And that can take 5, 10 years. And that's exactly what's happened to you by the sound of it. But you've made a good decision. And, a point that I'm making to a lot of people recently is that drinking poison for fun was fun for a bit of your life. And you enjoyed it. And you had a laugh. And you went out and you socialized. And alcohol was very much part of your life. But it wasn't a problem. And then you crossed the event horizon. Then you went through that valve where you became a problem drinker. And unfortunately, from that point on, there is no way back through the valve. There's no way past, no way to get back to that point where alcohol was just a bit of fun. You have crossed the line. And that means that alcohol no longer has a place in your life. And that's okay. People get very scared and very upset and worried about this, but it's okay. Because there are other things in your life that were a big part of your day-to-day life, and then all of a sudden they weren't, and you're okay with it. For example, when you were a kid, you probably loved playing in the ball pool on the soft play area at McDonald's. It was probably the best thing in your life. But at some point you left it behind, didn't you? And you say, it's just not appropriate for me anymore. I've outgrown it. I enjoyed it while it was there, but it's not appropriate anymore. And that's okay. You don't spend every day crying because you're not allowed to go in the soft play area, I hope. And the same is true of other things. Like for me, judo, the martial art judo, I used to love it. I used to go 3-4 times a week training. used to compete in competitions. I adored it. And then when I got into my 40s and I got a bit of a dodgy hip and I've got a bit of arthritis in my hands, it's just not appropriate for me. It would be dangerous for me to do it. And so I enjoyed it. I miss it, but it's not appropriate anymore. And the same is true of alcohol. You know, you get into your 40s and your 50s and you just got to say, it was there, it was fun. It's just not appropriate anymore. It doesn't fit with who I am these days. And it's okay. It's not a big deal. We make it into a big deal. It's not. Dean, the book was fantastic, Craig. Just rammed the point home that alcohol is poison. There's no benefit to it all. We feel so much better. Excellent. It's true. You know, I've been doing this for 13 years now. Nobody's ever come up with a benefit to drinking alcohol that I've agreed with. Not once in 13 years have I gone, yeah, oh God, yeah, you're right, yeah. Not a single benefit. Perth Girl says, I've stopped again now. The penny has finally dropped. I see it as poison. I'd rather pay $20 for soda than have free wine. Yeah. And also, Australia's drinking culture is as bad as ever. It must be kind of under the surface a lot, though, because it's, you know, it's quite refreshing when you go to Australia. You don't see alcohol everywhere, but everyone tells me there's a huge problem there. Andrew, thank you. Great book. Watching on Facebook today. Changed my life. Very good. Took me about 6 to 7 years to actually quit. Yeah. You know, I spent 5 years not trying to quit. I spent 5 years trying to do the impossible. I didn't want to quit because at this point in my life, I still thought that alcohol was the only treat I had in a hard life with lots of pressure, lots of responsibility. I still at this point believe that alcohol was the only thing I had. And so I didn't want to stop. I wanted to moderate my drinking. I wanted to be able to do that magic trick that I'd seen other people do. Go to the refrigerator, pour a glass of alcohol, drink one, and then put the bottle back. That to me was like, it's like, how have you done that? That's what I wanted to do. And I spent 5 years doing the most stupid, ridiculous, gimmicky things you can think of to try and drink one glass of wine a day. And some days I would manage it, but all I would do is sit there in my armchair, basically rocking backwards and forwards, shaking, thinking about alcohol, thinking, oh, I think I'll go to bed because I don't want to sit here thinking about wine all night. That's not freedom. That's not success. That's hell on earth. If you've just joined us, it's an impromptu Ask Me Anything, this. I haven't done one in a long time. I just thought I'd jump on and answer any questions that anyone's got about quitting drinking, staying sober, or anything else to do with personal development, whether it's anxiety or confidence or anything else that's big for you at the moment. Post up a question wherever you're watching, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and I will see the comments here on my screen. And I'll do my best to give you a half decent answer. Let's see what else we got here. Nice. It's about time for a live event, Craig. Wish you the best. Coming up in 5 years sober with your help. Forever grateful. Congratulations. 5 years. Awesome. Zoe on LinkedIn. Hi, Craig. I was a classic social drinker. I did your hypnosis 2nd of October, and I've never had a desire to drink alcohol since. It's been life-changing. I'm more sociable and confident now. Thank you. Fantastic. You're in a really small niche subset there, by the way, Zoe. Hypnosis is very powerful for some people, but they're not the majority. You know, to get that result from just listening to a hypnosis track, you're in like a 10% niche there. What hypnosis normally is it's a tool in the box, but it is not the complete toolbox. It's just one tool in it. So you would normally approach it with kind of several different angles, and one of those would be hypnotherapy. To get there with just hypnotherapy means that you're very suggestible and your problem was kind of in a very specific position in your brain, in your head, and the hypnosis went straight to it. So congratulations and well done. Fantastic. Abe Yosei Tertio, is that right, on YouTube? Hello, thank you for joining us. Say hello if you're watching. Let me know where you are in the world. I do appreciate that. I'm probably doing this at a really bad time as well, because it's 11:15 in the morning here in Cyprus, which probably means it's the middle of the night in the States. Abel just came back from detox, but as soon as I came home, I drank again, like nothing. I learned nothing there. Do I need to move to a new city or house to restart myself? No, you don't. But you have to understand that there's quite a lot of Pavlovian conditioning with alcohol, Abel. You know the story of Pavlov and his dogs, and that, you know, Ivan Pavlov was a Russian socioscientist, and what he did, he experimented with his dogs. So he would ring the bell and feed them, ring the bell, feed them, ring the bell, feed them. He did this dozens of times. And then eventually he stopped feeding them and just rang the bell. And the dogs responded as though food was being served. They salivated, they expected to eat. And it was a conditioning experiment, okay? And that's the story that everyone knows. But there's a longer version of the story that most people don't know. He continued the experiment, and he left it several months without ringing the bell to see what would happen. So he left it several months, rang the bell. What happened? Nothing. The dogs did not respond. The conditioning eroded. The conditioning is temporary, right? So when you've been conditioning yourself over years, maybe even decades, to expect alcohol in certain situations, and there'll be lots of these psychological anchors around your house. So for me, example, you know, when back at the peak of my drinking, my lazy boy armchair in front of the TV was a huge psychological anchor to me. I just have to sit in it any time of day, and I'd want to get a glass of wine. They went together, like, you know, knife and fork, whatever you want, but drinking was anchored to that physical location for me. So if I was getting a craving to drink, the absolute worst thing I could do would be to sit in that armchair, because I'm just essentially making it impossible for myself to stay sober. Now, you've been off to a clean environment where there are no anchors. There's no opportunity to drink. You're in detox. You're surrounded by like-minded people and doctors keeping an eye on you, and there are no physical anchors around. And then you come home and you're just assaulted. You know, your subconscious mind is assaulted with all these cues, smells and locations and textures and feels and places. So the first thing is, knowledge is power. Understanding why you feel the urge to drink, the real reason, is the first part of the battle. Because most people who haven't got the knowledge, haven't got the information, they get an urge to drink, and they assume it's because they genuinely want to drink some alcohol. That's 99% of the time not true. That craving to drink alcohol, once you understand what's really going on, is simply you stood on a psychological anchor. Or in other words, Pavlov rang the bell. The dogs didn't want to salivate. They didn't choose to salivate. They didn't debate it. You know, a couple of the dogs didn't rebel against the system and go, I refuse to salivate. It just happened. It's got nothing to do with being weak-willed or having no willpower. So don't beat yourself up on that. It just happened in the same way that your heart beats without asking your permission. The same way that you breathe in and out while you're asleep. You don't have to consciously remind yourself to keep doing it. These things happen. But once you have the knowledge to kind of step away from the event, almost float above it as though you're watching it being performed on a stage, and you can look at the feeling and disassociate yourself from it and say, okay, I've probably just activated an anchor here. So what I need to do is do the 4 things that Craig talks about in the course. You know, I talk about it a lot in the course. Do the 4 things. Get the pattern interrupt in place. You've got to stop that pattern playing out. Use the tapping therapy. Reduce the cortisol in your body. Lower that stress hormone so you're not so jittery, you're not so anxious. Because just before you drink alcohol, generally you're feeling a little bit jittery, you're feeling a little bit anxious. And you vocalize it as, oh, I could do with the drink. Whereas actually you should be vocalizing it as, oh, I feel a bit anxious. So it's knowledge is power in this. And often when you go to rehab, they give you drugs and they monitor you, make sure you don't drink, but then they send you home and you go back into an environment where you're not that in control. So Abel, don't beat yourself up. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just add some more knowledge into what you're doing here. If you haven't done it already, do my free webinar. If you go to stopdrinkingexpert.com, you can sign up for the free webinar. Zoe, what are your thoughts on alcohol-free drinks? It's a tricky conversation, this, because for some reason, some people get very upset if I'm too pro alcohol-free drinks. They say things like, how dare you? Don't you know it's a trigger? Don't you know that even alcohol-free beer has 0.01% alcohol in it? Yeah, I know all this. And maybe for some people it is a trigger. And I guess you won't find out that unless you try one, which is a bit of a gamble, of course. All I can tell you, Zoe, is from my point of view, I think they're great. I think they have their place. And as long as you're not abusing them, as long as you're not drinking a 6-pack of alcohol-free beer every night, because that's a bit weird. You probably wouldn't drink 6 cans of Coke every night, would you? And if you did, over time, you'd start thinking, this isn't right. I shouldn't be doing this. So anything that becomes distorted like that is an indicator that you've got a problem with it. But the occasional alcohol-free beer, what's the harm? What they're great for is at parties, because you can guarantee if you go to a drunken party, there'll be someone there who wants to tell you how miserable you are for not drinking and how you're ruining the fun for everyone and how terrible you are. And if you stand there with an alcohol-free beer with your hand over the label and just slowly drink it, people leave you alone. They assume it's normal beer. And just stand there slowly nursing it, and it's fantastic. People leave you alone. I do think they have their place. There are environments where, as a sober person, you can feel like you're missing out. You can feel left out. For example, when you go to a bar and you order a beer, if you order a famous brand of beer like Stella Artois or something, they generally come with their own special branded glassware. And the Stella Artois glass it's not like a glass. It's like a chalice. It's like this. It's like you've won first prize in a competition. It's this glorious chalice. And what they freeze it. So they get the glass out of the freezer, and as they put it in front of you, it crackles and beads of condensation run down the glass, and they fill the glass from a beer tap that looks like a swan's neck. There's so much theater and drama about getting served a pint of beer. And then you come up as sober Joe and you say, I'll have a Coke, please. And they dump it in a glass, a straight glass, put it in front of you and charge you 5 times what it should be. And there's a bit of you that goes, for some reason, I didn't quite enjoy that process. Like when you get on a plane, if you travel business class and they come around and they give glasses of champagne to everyone. Even though you don't want the champagne, you still feel like they're getting better value. They're I'm getting ripped off here. I'm having a glass of water and he's having a glass of, Moët and Chandon. Why am I not getting a discount on my ticket? Whereas now, with some of the Eastern airlines like Qatar and Emirates and things like that, you have the option of alcohol-free champagne. And I think it's fantastic. Funny story, I flew Qatar Airlines to Bangkok about 3 months ago. And the air hostess, she came and she said, "What do you want to drink, Mr. Beck?" I said, "I'll have a alcohol-free champagne, please." She brought the glass, and I tasted it. I thought that tastes just like champagne. So I called her over and I said, "Are you sure that's alcohol-free?" She said, "Absolutely, it is, yes." I went, "That's amazing." So I had another little sip, and something just wasn't sitting right with me. I was thinking that really tastes like alcohol. So I called her over again. I said, "Look, I know I've asked you this already, but are you absolutely 100% certain that this is alcohol-free champagne?" She said, "Mr. Beck, I promise you it is." I said, "Look, I don't mean to be awkward." I said, "But would you mind bringing me the bottle?" And she went off and she didn't come back for about 5 minutes. And she came back without the bottle. And she said to me, "I'm very sorry, Mr. Beck. I gave you regular champagne." How bad is that? So she replaced it, but I'm glad that I didn't take her word for it. Let's see what else we got here. If you've just joined us, we're just doing an impromptu AMA, Ask Me Anything. I'll stay as long as you've got questions, and you can ask me absolutely anything at all. Tim Seymour is on YouTube. Quit, thanks to you, over 3 years ago. I used to drink heavily, gamble, and smoke weed. Stop the drink and the gambling, but I can't stop the weed. Any ideas, Craig, please? People ask me sometimes, why don't you do stuff about quitting smoking? And the answer is because I've never smoked. I smoked for about 2 weeks in school to try and look cool. Didn't work. So I just feel a bit out of my depth talking about it. And whereas I've been through pretty much everything that you can imagine with alcohol, I've been through every situation, I've tried everything to stop. I would feel a little bit of imposter syndrome if I started talking about quitting smoking and quitting weed, because I've never had a weed problem, and I don't really understand the addictive nature of it. So I can't. I could try, and I might get it right and I might get it wrong, but in all honesty, Tim, I think you'd be better off finding someone who is actually an expert in that rather than taking a chance on me being able to work something out. So maybe not the answer you're looking for, but as honest as I can be. Kinnan, what do you do about people who only sponsor newcomers to set up a gang to attack their so-called enemies? Okay. Kinnan, do you want to rephrase the question for me? Because I'm not entirely sure what you mean. There might be something lost in translation there. Try to rephrase it for me. Nice. These anchors over time get lighter and lighter. Focus on the good anchors that want to pull you into a better life. True. Yeah. It takes 21 days to create a new habit. That's why I tell people on the course, do the hypnosis every day for 21 days. And in fact, someone bought a custom hypnosis track off me 2 weeks ago. He emailed me 3 days later. He said, "Look, Craig, I'm not happy. I've listened to this track 3 nights in a row and I'm still drinking. What the hell?" I said, "Look, it doesn't work like that. If it was that simple, if you just had to listen once and then you were cured, there would be no need for therapists. There would be no need for AA or anything, would there?" As with everything in life, success comes down to your passion and your persistence. It's about repeatedly getting knocked down and choosing to get up over and over again. That is how success is done. Yeah. So 21 days every day if you want to create a new habit. And those psychological anchors, as long as you can stop them activating with a pattern interrupt or something, they will slowly get weaker and weaker, as Pavlov proved with the dogs. Rob Woods, good to hear from you, Rob. On alcohol-free drinks, depending on the stage of the psychological freedom, once we see the poison for what it is, alcohol-free is no different to any other cold drink. So for some, maybe a trigger. Yeah, I agree with you. And it's like, some people email me and say things like, I'm 10 days sober. Is it okay to have an alcohol-free drink? And I always say, look, just leave it a bit longer. you're really, you're really new into this. You need to get to the point where you are rock solid in your belief that you don't want alcohol anymore. You need to get to the point where you watch other people drinking alcohol and your gut response, your instant response to that is to go, why would they do that? Why would they choose to drink poison? Because for the, initially you're going to watch people around you and you're going to think, oh, I feel like I'm missing out. I used to be able to do that and I can't anymore. And in that moment, you're weak. So why bring in a chance that something's going to trip you up, that, for you, alcohol-free drinks are going to be a trigger. So I agree with Rob. Once you've established your sobriety to the point where you no longer think about alcohol, you look at it and feel nothing but disgust for it. The same way that you probably look at a junkie doing heroin and you think, oh my God, how can they do that to themselves? When you get to that point with alcohol, you're good to go, I think. Thanks, Rob. Nick Z. I like to hear from folks who had that one drink and were back to their previous level in a couple of days. Cautionary tales to never have one drink. Yeah, and that's why, I always talk about the 5 most dangerous words on planet Earth. Just one drink won't hurt. Because that's how you're going down, my friend. That's how it's getting you. Your relapse will start with one drink and the intention to have one drink only. Your relapse is very unlikely to start with the, I'm going to drink a bottle of vodka. It doesn't work like that. It will blindside you. But one idle Tuesday, as the song goes. You'll be at a wedding with no intention to drink at all. And someone will push a glass of champagne in your hand and say, oh, to toast the bride and groom. And that little voice in your head will say, you could probably just have one champagne. It'd be rude not to. Just one glass of champagne and then back on the Coca-Cola. And the problem is, if you've been sober a long time, let me tell you what happens. And it's so predictable. It's amazing, right? You stand there with a glass of alcohol and you've not had a drink in 6 months, a year. And you think, well, okay, I can probably just have one. And you do this, you go, oh, it's horrible. Oh, how did I ever drink that? It's disgusting. Oh my God. And you're so proud of yourself and you're so happy because you tried alcohol and you hated it. Well, guess what happens the next day? The voice comes and it says, you're cured. You don't even like alcohol anymore. You can probably just drink to be social now. Why don't you have one beer to see how you feel? And you go, what a great idea. And you have a beer and you go, oh, I don't like it. Fantastic. I'm cured. Yay. Fast forward 2 weeks. You're drinking just as much as you did when you first stopped drinking. It's so devious. It's so devious the way it pulls you, but slowly back into the quicksand. So watch out for that. Great point, Nick. Bonnie, quit 6 months ago. Life is not perfect now, but it's way better than before still. Yeah, the healing process is slow, Bonnie, but it's consistent. That's the good thing. I think it was 2010. 2010, I quit. And it wasn't like the day after I was skipping down the road, everything was sunshine and roses. It wasn't like that. Slowly, I think my health started to improve first. 3 months after quitting drinking, my blood pressure was down at perfectly normal levels after 10 years of being borderline hypertension. 3 months after quitting drinking. Then like 6 months, I started to lose a bit of weight. Some aches and pains disappeared. 3 years later, my relationships were in a better place. 5 years later, my finances were in a much better place. So just keep going, all right? And slowly, you'll see the whole of your life improve, but don't have the expectation that it's going to happen in a month, 6 months, even a year. These things slowly get better, but they just keep getting better. So keep going. I quit nicotine and alcohol at the same time 5 years ago. I just used Craig's method on both. Glad it worked. Bonnie, how do you go about cleaning up the relationship messes you created while you were still actively drinking? That's a good question. There's not a great answer to it, because I think the problem is, as an alcoholic, as a problem drinker, your reputation is pretty much ruined in many regards. And so it no longer matters what you say. You know, if you've let someone down enough times and then you get sober and you say to them, I promise I'll never let you down again, it doesn't matter. They're not listening to you. They won't believe you. They'll just go, yeah, okay. Because your word is garbage. All right. So the only way really to repair that situation is to consistently, over a very long period of time, demonstrate by your actions that you have changed. And who knows how long that will take, because the duration that will take will depend upon how much damage you did and how important the relationship was to you. You know, your parents will probably forgive you quicker than an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend will. Or maybe they just don't want the trouble, you know. Some relationships you'll have damaged for good, and you'll just have to accept that. You know, I completely destroyed a friendship one night, drunk in Newcastle in England. Had a very good friend. We used to spend a lot of time together. We worked together. We worked for different companies, but we worked in the same area. We socialized together. He was a lovely guy. Everyone said he was the nicest guy in the world. And he was, and probably still is. And then one night I got absolutely paralytic. And for some reason, I just attacked him. Verbally, not physically. I just launched into this guy and told him that he was, you know, a professional, nice guy, and he was only nice to get what he wanted. I don't know where it came from, but I just launched into this guy and abused him in the most horrible way. And I woke up in the morning and had that, oh no, what have I done? And I rang him to apologize, and he graciously accepted my apology, and I've never seen him since. He said, I accept your apology. And I never heard from her again. So, you know, there's a lesson there, isn't there? Sometimes the damage is permanent, but if you're with people who love you, be consistent in your actions over a long time, and eventually you win them round. But, you know, don't be in a hurry. You can't rush it. They'll forgive you when they're ready. Zoe. When I asked my husband, do you think I will ever drink again? He says, no, because you don't want to break your streak. He's so right. Good. Good. But look, Zoe, there's a danger in what you're saying there as well, right? Because I always avoid these predictions of I will never drink alcohol again for the rest of my life. Because how do you know? You're not a fortune teller, neither am I. And, you know, like I said, on that flight to Bangkok 3 months ago, I drank alcohol. I didn't mean to. Wasn't my choice. The air hostess gave me a glass of champagne and told me it was non-alcoholic. I took 2 sips of the drink before it got replaced. Now, if you've built that event to be so significant, so it's like do or die, you know, if you've built that premise of never drinking alcohol again so high, then how are you going to cope if you do accidentally drink alcohol? Is it going to be disaster? Is it going to be, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater? Well, I've had one drink, I might as well carry on. Don't make it into a huge, big deal that you're never going to drink again. Just say, it is my preference. This is my choice, that I'm not going to have alcohol. If you accidentally sip some, don't make it into a big deal. Don't go crazy. So what? Who cares? All right, because it will happen at some point. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on that one. Nick, thank you. You're welcome. Bonnie says, thank you for the info. I'm most concerned about my 3 grown children won't talk to me. Look, they'll forgive you. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Consistency, just demonstrate who the new you is. You know, they've been probably, I don't know your situation, but if you've lied to your children, because drinkers, we lie all the time, don't we? We lie about how much we drink. We lie about when we last had a drink. We lie about where we've been, what we're doing. We lie all the time, and we're not as smart as we think we are. So if you've lied to your children and they know you've lied to them, they've been hurt by you, and they'll have some scars from that. So it'll take a little bit of time, but eventually, because they love you, they will realize that you're serious this time. But like I said, you can't accelerate the process. You can't speed it up. There is a number of days it will take, but nobody knows what it is. Perth Watch Girl. That's a great point. And I know you've addressed it in the past. How do you feel about counting continuous days sober? Look, I'm not really big on rules. Sometimes people take what I say and say, "Oh, it's Craig's rule." It's if you want to count the days, count the days. I'm just telling you that my kind of view of it is it gives alcohol more importance and significance than it's due. I mean, you know, if I spoke to you now and said, how many days is it since you ate an orange? You wouldn't be able to tell me probably, unless you had one yesterday. But you wouldn't be able to say, oh, it's 347 days since I've had an orange, would you, if it had been that long? You wouldn't be able to say, oh, it was 7 weeks on Tuesday that I had my last orange. And on, you know, the 15th of August next year, you wouldn't have a celebration 1 year without an orange, because it's not, it's insignificant, isn't it? Who cares? You know, who cares when you had an orange? It's not important. It doesn't have any relevance in your life. So if you're counting, it's 2 weeks since I had a drink, it's 3 weeks, it's 6 months, it's the 1 year anniversary since I had a drink. You're giving a whole heap of importance to this discharge from rotting vegetables, this poison in a pretty bottle that means nothing, that is garbage. You're giving a whole lot of, you know, spotlight to something that doesn't mean anything. So I just think counting days, if you want to do it and it helps you, then do it. But I think you should just, once you get to the point where you believe alcohol to be nothing but a hindrance and negative in your life, then let it go. In the same way that if you got out of prison, you probably wouldn't count the days that you were free, would you? You know, you wouldn't get out of prison and go, 3 weeks yesterday I got out of prison, 6 months yesterday, 8 months since I got, you'd just get on with your life, wouldn't you? Now you're free, get on with it. Rob, the new you is so true. Reboot back to the real you. And not perfect by any stretch, but way more than the intoxicated version. It's true. Here's the truth. Problem drinkers are terrible human beings. Alcoholics are awful human beings. You are just the worst version of you. You are the version of you that has no morals, has no filter, has no manners, has no grace, has no respect, has no loyalty, has no sense of compassion, has no sense of, you know, when enough is enough. You're just an awful version of you. Why would you choose that? Why would you set out to say, well, I'm going to drink today and I'm going to choose to be the absolute worst version of me? Crazy. Ellie Bell, I'm not totally sober, but I've come so far on my journey. I feel so proud. I've read so many books and increasingly getting better and better. Good for you. It's a secret, isn't it? You know, the goal is to make, you know, to be a better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. Yeah, it's a good way to do it. As long as you're continually moving forward, then it doesn't matter how you get there, does it? All right. Well, we've been going for 45 minutes. I apologize that there was no notice for this. I just kind of felt like doing one. But I'll try and do another one again soon, I promise. So thanks very much for being here with me today. If you have any questions that pop up afterwards, you can email me anytime via the website, stopdrinkingexpert.com. And if you are here because you're worried about your drinking, then the next thing for you to do right now don't put it off, is to book your place on the next Stop Drinking Expert free webinar, and I'll give you a copy of my book as a gift just for turning up. Thanks so much, and enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.